Melody, Melody, Melody. I've been
Talk
told
to
that
me.
you are very, very, very alive and you've got something very special going on in your life that I don't want to talk about. We're going to talk about though, because I heard somewhere in between there, and I need you to tell me if this is true or not.
What's
They call
that?
you
Tell me.
Melodious,
Melodious. Yes, that's right. That is my old name, Melodious.
but is it for a good reason or is it for love?
I think for both. I think it's for both. It is absolutely for both.
Okay, so are you ready to talk about love?
Absolutely.
Are
I'm
you ready?
absolutely
Are you
ready.
ready to heal?
Absolutely been ready. Been
And are
working
you,
on the
more
healing.
importantly, are you ready to bring back your smile?
100.
Yes, mi gente linda, this is Abiertos. We're back with you guys having some fun. And today we're going to talk about something that I love to talk about, something that's going to bring a bit of a light. But before we do that, I'm going to bring in Little Miss Thing back. Where is she? Where is she? Where is she?
I am right
Hey,
here.
there she is. Look at that smile. Middle all bright and awake, bright sunshine and bushy tail. Because you know what?
There you
I got them
go.
out of bed early. I've been messaging my two co-hosts since like 7 in the morning. I was rudely awakened at 6:15 in the morning. So I said, you know what? If I'm up, they're up. Si acabó. But before I left and speak and talk and say anything else, there's somebody I miss, and I want to be very very open with you guys. Last night he made me cry. Last night he made me feel something I haven't felt in a while. You know what? Hello. Because last night you were the one I was looking for. Jorge!
I'm so disgusted. I'm smiling. It hurts. What
It
up,
might
world?
hurt.
It's
No,
the
what?
voice
We love you.
bacon, the voice of power, aka the lady's choice, aka the Yalam Asukar. And yes, it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Snowing like whew, outside, but
Well, I should post a video that I sent you guys this morning.
I
It's
said you.
actually awesome.
It's
Oh,
horrible out there.
yeah.
Like literally, it's beyond past my knee. I had to shovel before I could even get off the first step, and I'm like, yo, really? This is not
Wow.
fair anymore. But let's stop talking about snow and all the BS.
Mhm.
What do you guys think about a phoenix? What does a phoenix represent to you? And I'll tell you guys before we bring on our guest today what it means to me after.
Mhm.
Well, I heard of the phoenix as it's. I know it's a bird, or it represents a bird that rises from the ashes. So basically, like a symbol of if you were in a situation where you were down, you've you've overcome it with in any way somehow, and you've risen and you've moved forward from that situation and make yourself to be better that you don't get into that situation again. That's my kind of a take on it.
I love when you get serious. What about you, Mel?
Um, so it's something just to continue on from what Bacon said. The only word that comes to me when I think of Phoenix is rebirth. That's it.
Wow. Wow. So I'm going to give you guys in some info that very few people know. When I first got into the entertainment industry, I didn't know what to do and where to go with my logo and what we were going to do. So I grabbed the Phoenix and I took it upon myself because it was a rebirth for me back into the industry that I so love. And when I heard what our guest today has, the name of her business and who she is, it resonated so hard that we had to make this happen. Now that we're making the changes and going into more of our mental health because it's important, and I strongly believe that all three of us have been through enough that we can't say we're gurus or coaches because we're not at that level, but we can definitely express and show more. So, mi gente linda, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to bring you guys the relationship phoenix, Miss Debi Richens onto the show.
Hello. Oh, thank you. I've never been clapped onto a show before. That's lovely. So can I just say, Bacon, Melody, and Mendez, all of you described Phoenix in such a beautiful way. And you're all right, and this is what's so beautiful about it. There are so many connotations of what a phoenix is and how we become that phoenix when we've been through tough times. And often we don't realize until we've come out of the tough times just how low we got. And of course, the phoenix, as Bacon so rightly expressed, rises from the flames, rises from something that was not right or was old or was just not needed anymore.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
So before we start doing what we normally do, I'm going to try to let these folks ask their questions before I do. But can you give us a bit of an understanding who Debi Richens is?
Okay, so I'm a lot of things from a lot of experiences. I'm an individual person who's had experiences from childhood that had an impact on my life that colored how I make choices. I'm a mother who doesn't get to be a mother right now because of divorce and the things that go with divorce when people are hurting and when they lash out to do damage. And unfortunately, the damage was very much wrapped around the relationship with my only child. So I've had to learn how to navigate being a motherless mother, a childless mother, and a grandchildless grandmother, because there are grandchildren now. And it's been a journey of learning who I am and learning to grow and learning to break out of all the expectations that others had of me all my life, and learning to actually step up and take responsibility for who I am and who I want to be, rather than just to keep on wearing all those layers of expectations that other people have put in and around me ever since my childhood. Because, of course, in childhood, we live with all the examples and the mirrors that all the adults raise around us. So we live within their shadow as we're learning. And then when we step into that world of being a young adult, then we're trying to please everybody around us, but we're also pleasing those people above us that give us jobs and look after our health and all of these other aspects of society. So I've navigated all of those things not very well for a lot of the time, because I didn't know how I was putting myself in emotional situations of danger. And as I've learned how to make them healthy and constructive and powerful.
Wow.
Wow, that's very deep. And then thank you for sharing that with us. If I may start with the question for you, in your journey and in all the challenges you faced throughout your life, at what point did you decide, okay, this is where I owe it to myself to make this change or have this rebirth?
So actually, I think it's always been there as a little tiny seed waiting to just break out and grow. But it really wasn't until I had a previous business and I was in a women's networking group, monthly group. And a lady came along who started talking about grief. But she was talking about grief outside of the box of death. And all my life, and I'm honest, I'm 60. So all my life I was conditioned to know that grief was death. I wasn't told as a child that it was divorce and friendship and financial and health and all these other aspects of our lives that we experience. And So when I went through the divorce, I had the medical profession telling me, there, it'll be all right, take a pill. Thankfully, I was allergic, so that didn't work very well for them. And, you know, as the time went along, things just didn't feel right to me. And I knew there was something more, but I didn't know what until I met this lady talking about grief. And all of a sudden, it was like somebody, you know, you're talking about shoveling snow earlier. It was like somebody was literally digging a path for me, you know, and I was seeing myself in a way that I'd never understood before. And that was huge. And that was, gosh, that was back in 2016. And it was very powerful having that sort of awakening, if you like. But it wasn't until 2019 when I actually did the training to become a grief coach on the back of seeing that and talking to her that everything absolutely changed for me.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
Ooh, that's I know we're just getting started, but this is a lot to take in, which is it's hitting me in a spot that I didn't realize it would hit. So you mentioned just now that you learned about grief outside of death.
Yes.
I've never heard that term, and that's very interesting because my question that I want to ask you is how is it that you were able to, I guess, cope with the situations that you're going through?
Well, yeah, to answer that, I didn't. Until I understood about grief, I didn't. I was the biggest emotional mess. I could not have had a conversation with you like this now. I would literally have been, I cried all the time. I described the situation as being like a jigsaw in my heart and having a piece of my heart just missing all the time. My body didn't like it. I actually had 2 life-saving surgeries, one in 2007 and one in 2015, both of them linked to the emotional distress and impact it was having on my body. Because it wasn't just the pressure I was putting on myself, it was the post-divorce abuse that was going on in the background. It was the caring responsibilities for my present partner's then mother when she was alive. It was the caring responsibilities for my own mother when she was alive, you know, and the impact of all those things going on meant there wasn't any time for me to look after me. And so I was falling down, you know, a bit Alice in Wonderland, falling down the cavern and not knowing where the bottom was.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think we'll give Bacon a moment, but I think a lot of us have faced these moments, and a lot of us have journeys that we're going through, and most of us don't even understand it. And these emotional roller coasters that you're speaking about, I think we've all experienced it, and at some points didn't even know what to do with it. And just what you said about your life change, like your experiences, that you've had your surgeries, you're absolutely right. I think that these things that we experience and don't know how to deal with can be so impactful in our actual life. The stress that we carry, right?
It's there's an expression that you carry a lot of boulders in your life, and it's not until you understand what the boulders are that you can let them go. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what your body is doing with all the emotion that it carries.
Yeah.
If you can't express it in your voice, then you internalize and you swallow it down. And you hear that phrase, swallowing down your words. Gut instinct. You know, gut is about the words we feel in our gut, because, of course, our gut is our third brain. And there is a physical connection between the gut and the brain. So whatever's going on up here, if it isn't healthy, where's the first place it's going to be? In our stomach. You
Hmm.
know, you hear about people talking about that constant in their throat, then there's always something, and they don't quite know how to it's because they're not speaking their words, they're swallowing it down. So their bodies are holding on to it in all their sensitive places. So the throat, around the heart, in the lungs, down into the stomach, but then it goes down into your muscle tissue, and it goes down into your, into your bones almost. It's everywhere in your body. So if you're not expressing, you're physically hurting yourself in some way without even realizing. And it took that first surgery for me to truly understand that.
It's definitely life-changing, and it's altering when you turn around and you start waking up. When you start seeing who you were and realizing who you desire to be and who you truly should be. All that being said, after your surgeries, how has that impacted your life? How has that impacted those around you?
It's so interesting. I have long-term friendships, people I've known since I was very young. School, when we all go to school and we have those people in our lives. People who've seen me grow and change in this last few years, people I've got to know through the networking that I've been doing. I've been in business networking since 2010. So I've known some of these people a very long time, and they've seen me go from that person that put up a mask and blustered my way through everything to actually a much more confident, much more vibrant, much more engaged person, and somebody who doesn't need to try to be seen anymore, somebody who can speak but then step back. And that, when that was pointed out to me by one of my now friends, I really had to stop and think about it. But then I realized how when we're not seen, we're often in people's faces without realizing it because of our need to be seen. And then when we're not in that place where we don't need to be seen, we can be more constructive about how we engage with people and the things that we have to say. So then once we've said it, we can step back and allow that space to be even for others. And when I look back to where I was, I can quite clearly see that person who was afraid of being missed, who was afraid of not being seen, and who did everything to be busy and be there in everyone's face, but not necessarily in the most constructive, healthy way.
Can definitely see just through your words how powerful you've become within yourself and how it's resonated with people around you. And just for me, like I always talk with my co-hosts here about perception. And that's a very strong word, because before this podcast, we're just meeting you for the first time, and I wouldn't have thought you've gone through all of these just because of how your body language, how you speak, how you carry yourself, and so on. So that's something very important that a lot of people like to talk about, because for me, I always say perception is in one's eyes that clearly doesn't see, because they only see what's in front of them and don't ask questions or find out who this person is or what they're all about, and just make an assumption of, hey, she must be great, look at her stance, like she speaks well, conducts herself very nicely. So it's very refreshing getting to know about you. And I was looking at some of your stuff here before we came on, and just very impressed with what I seen, but never would have thought that you were a being of going through it and now sharing it and making it positive for those around you going forward. That's something big, really big.
Bacon, what you just said is so lovely. Thank you. Because I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I've always been that friend that stepped up, even though I was going through my own stuff. I've always stepped up because I couldn't bear to see someone else hurting when I knew how deeply it was affecting me with my own hurt. And when I started doing the grief coaching, I suddenly realized I had a little superpower. It didn't feel like a big one then. It felt like a little one because I wasn't sure of where it was taking me. I wasn't sure of how it was going to grow. But what I was sure of, and what I'm still sure of now, is that I don't want to see others go through the long, protracted, drawn out journey of emotional distress and just fear that I lived in for so long. So if I can grab someone and scoop them up and give them that space to know that they're held and safe and secure, and that they can be free with how they need to speak. They can express their hurt without being judged and criticized. And they can have a lesser journey to find themselves. Then for me, that's the greatest gift. And for every client I work with, I step up a bit more.
That's amazing. That's almost like that's saying like you're helping them find their voice. There's some people that don't have one, so you're helping them find their voice, right? And that's a beautiful thing. That's wonderful. And I feel like there's definitely people like yourself that we need to showcase more, because talking about our feelings, talking about our emotions is something that is really hidden. It's something that a lot of people don't want to like speak about, right? It's like having double faces and portraying a persona and being in a different way. So helping people find their voice is great, and showcasing someone like you to the public is a great thing. I feel very beneficial to those. I had a question for you in regards to going along with finding the voice and healing. Do you feel or think that a part of healing, whether like you said, if it's through friendships, divorce, relationships, um, do you think that forgiveness, or what role do you think forgiveness plays in healing?
So I'm so glad, Melody, you've asked that, because that was part of my first journey. When I did the grief coaching, I had to learn how to do it for me first. And part of that was understanding that I could give myself forgiveness, because that's where compassion lies. When we learn to forgive ourselves for putting ourselves in places to please others that weren't necessarily healthy for us, for whatever the reasons are. But then it's also about how we learn to forgive others as well. Because you've heard the old adage about, would you drink poison and wait? Would you give them the poison and wait for it to kill them? When actually you're drinking it yourself. Why poison yourself? So it's about how you learn to forgive others as well as yourself. It's the two sides of a coin. They're both healthy if you nurture them and care for them properly, but they're not healthy if you're looking at them with hate and anger and all of those things that push that person away. And that's another journey I've had to learn along the way.
Yeah.
But it's been a very powerful journey,
Yeah.
hugely enlightening. And when I take clients through the process of forgiveness, they always sort of sit in fear of what they're going to find they're saying or what they're going to find they're expressing. But when they've done the process, they sit there absolutely in awe of their own experience, because it's a freedom they never knew they could have.
That's amazing.
When you finish with a client, when you've taken them through the courses, through the help, in your point of view, what is the biggest accomplishment? What is the biggest form for you to see that you've made a difference to them?
It's the client that goes out and finds proper love that's on an equal basis. It's the client that was able to reconcile with the terrible, terrible miscarriages and issues with not being able to have children. It's the client who loves themselves more. It's the client who steps out and finds a better job, one that's more fulfilling, one that's more engaging, and not necessarily more financially, but just gives them so much more in their life. It's the client that feels safe walking out in the street again and can hold themselves up high. And it's the client that sits and smiles at me rather than cries.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing. Do you find it harder to help males or females overcome?
Females tend to think more in the form of societal language. So, who's going to judge me? Who's going to criticize me? So it's all about what's coming in at them all the time, because the construct of male and female, there's always been the masculine power that sort of in government and in being a doctor and in education and all of these other places. So women are very much more societal led by, the expectation of society, whereas men tend to go, damn it, I'm going to give it a go, But equally, I've had so much joy from both lots of coaching. And I love coaching men as much as I love coaching women.
Very cool. I know this is we're only halfway through the program, but I'm letting you know now, Debbie, we want to have you back.
Oh, I'd be delighted. Thank you.
Seeing the smiles on my two co-hosts and seeing them so deep in thought brings a light to us and makes me very happy that we were able to somehow connect, because the world needs more Debbies. The world needs more people that are going to help and are willing to open up and see the brighter side of life. Because you can have a lot of people turn around and talk the talk, but they haven't lived it. They haven't moved from it. And seeing you and hearing your stories, it's enlightening, it's heartwarming, and from what I can see with my co-hosts, it's making them think. It's making them think and making them wake up. And sometimes we need that in life. Sometimes we need that stranger to come up and wake us, say, you know what? You're worth it. You're so much more than what you are.
Yeah, hugely. And every person is worth it, no matter where you are in the pecking order of life, no matter what your experiences have been, no matter whether you've done bad things, everybody is worth it. Because even the people that do bad things are there because of the experiences they've had that didn't protect them when they needed protecting. And often that starts in childhood, where we form limiting beliefs and we make those limiting decisions that hold us in a place of fear because we think we're protecting ourselves, when ultimately actually we're doing ourselves more and more harm. And it's I grew up in a single parent family, so I know what it's like to just have one parent who couldn't do it all, couldn't be there for us all. There were four of us, and my mum was very sick for most of my childhood. So my little brother actually had to grow up with my grandparents because he was too small for her, as well as three other toddlers. And she had 4 children under 4.5. When I was 4.5, my brother was 9 days old, my youngest brother. And then she had the 2 in between. And my 2 middle brothers just had a wonderful time because they just were little tykes. They were not so easy to control because they wanted to explore. They wanted to go and find out what the world was about. But there wasn't a male in their life to guide them, and my mother wasn't well enough. So that disruption in childhood, we all created limiting beliefs that have colored our lives, but we had no idea what those things were because they came from a time when we couldn't express ourselves properly. And so what did we do? We swallowed those words down. We put the thoughts away in here. And I've always likened our brain, our memory, to Pandora's box, because in our unconscious mind, or our subconscious mind, as a lot of people use the term, it sees, it hears, it smells, it feels. We feel the energies around us. So everything that we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we touch, all those senses are tucked away in here. And the story of Pandora's box is that it falls over and everything falls out. And that's what happens to us. We become overloaded, and one day we snap. And actually, so many people don't understand that anger is the root of grief, because it's where we can't express ourselves, who we are in here, because we're terrified of saying it from here. And so we swallow it down. And then it becomes much more painful and destructive when it does come out, because it comes out a bit like a volcano, blah, rather than paced and considered.
So that's like more like a roller coaster of emotions that just explode,
Yes.
right? And I think again, like that's something that I've experienced myself. I literally use the word rebirth when it comes to the phoenix, because I experienced a rebirth. I had that moment where I exploded. I broke everything. I hit things. I found strength to pick up a 60-inch TV on my own and remove it, and said, I'm done. I'm done everything. My room is being repainted. I want everything brand new, because everything I had carried inside of me for so many years, being the giver, being the yes person, being that person that everybody just beat up on, just had a breakthrough. And I had a life activation done. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I had a life activation done, and that was in 2019. And since that day, my entire life has changed. And so, like Menda said, having you here is a pleasure, because not only to bring awareness to those who struggle or are struggling, but also for ourselves, for myself personally speaking, it's a reassurance that, yeah, Mel, you are going in the right path, And I'm very aware that this journey never ends.
No,
So it's
no.
a beautiful thing to hear you being able to not only share your own situation, your own testimonials, but that you have the tips, or you have the availability to express or teach us things, that techniques that we can take on and we can learn from, to continue growing and continue becoming better versions of ourselves, right?
Yeah, very much so. Because it is about taking that step and just breathing.
Yeah.
It is about just stopping and weighing up the situation rather than just expressing at speed,
Yeah.
because everybody else is going to have their own perception of what you're saying
Yeah.
and their own way of reacting to what you're saying, because it also depends on their limiting decisions and beliefs.
What would you say, for our viewers who perhaps are facing these challenges, these moments in their own life, and they don't even know what to do in order to take that step to change? Like, what would you advise them to do? Or like, even if it is to reach out to you, something to like give them that first step into addressing their journey?
Well, I think one of the things one of the things I first learnt to do when I was doing the grief coaching was actually to acknowledge what I was experiencing. Sit down with a pen and paper, write down those things that are really bothering you, and then look at them and put them in the order of the worst to the least worst, so that you can look at how you can deal with the least worst faster, and what else you need to do to deal with the bigger stuff. Because when you can tick off the small stuff, it's easier to step into the bigger stuff. You know, and people go, no, I don't do writing. But actually, there is scientific proof of pencil on paper and how powerful it is to express what's going on in here and actually physically watching it appearing on the page. It's very powerful because you are reinforcing that you're ready to let go of something.
That's very true. That's very true. I've heard that term, pen to paper, where people I've seen go through and they have a hard time expressing their feelings through speaking. So with writing something every day, how their day went, how they woke up, how they tried to go to sleep, any type of form of writing, and then looking at it gives them the sense of, like you're mentioning, letting go to bring in change.
Yes, because it's about reflection. And when you can look back and reflect on what you've written, you can see the depth of where your pain is. You can see the depth of where you're stuck. And then you can take the steps to find out how to unstick where you are. And that's powerful. But if it's all trapped in here, you've not really got a hope. It's just going to go around in here like soup. You want to let go of it. And for me, that was one of the biggest things, was actually sitting down and writing it down and acknowledging it was real, that I wasn't imagining it.
No, definitely. It's letting go, learning to let go is not an easy process. It's something we go through, and I have to give a big shout out to my coach, my life coach. I have big love and respect for him, even though he drove me nuts the first little bit that I knew him, both him and Daniela. But Arturo, once you find that coach, that person, they don't become just your coach, but they become a friend, somebody that opens you up and brings you up. Now, I don't know if you know what I'm about to do, Debbie, but I'm about to do a sign that I was taught by my coach, and it means a lot. For some people understand it, some people don't. Some people have actually laughed at me because they know exactly where it's coming from. But it's world renowned within coaches, from what I was told when I was taught to do it. So if you're watching, because I know he watches the show, as Arturo, you know exactly what this means, sir. I got much love for him. If you guys ever get the chance, I'm trying to get him on the show, because like Debbie, they make a difference. They make a difference in people's lives. They make a difference to people, how they foresee things and how they learn to love themselves. But I have a question, Debbie, and I know this is going to touch a lot of people, because when I first asked this question, I didn't know how to react to it when I got the answer to it. And I want to get your view and your answer. At some point, we all lose someone. And I'm not talking losing just because of a relationship. I'm talking losing them in life. They're no longer with us. We won't be able to touch them, hug them, hold them, hear them ever again. If you do not mind sharing a tip, a pointer of how we can begin to heal, because we never forget, but we can heal. What would you give us?
You're absolutely right, Mendes. We can heal. And it isn't about forgetting, because if you think about it, especially if they're a physical relative, you carry part of them within you. If they're your parents or your aunts or uncles, their genetics are within you. Their similarities in their face, in their characteristics, the way they express themselves, we carry those generationally. So one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is actually to celebrate what we have physically carried from our previous layer of relatives, because that in itself is so powerful. I'll give you a little story. So back in 2014, I travelled 4 hours down to Kent in the UK to an event that was being put together by two of my distant cousins. One of them was my mother's first cousin, and she lives in New Zealand. And the other one was my grandmother's cousin's daughter. So she is my fourth cousin, twice removed. In that room, there were 68 of my relatives from 6 continents. And I only knew 4 others. My brother, my 2 cousins, my cousin's father, my mother's brother. All of the other relatives in the room were all distant cousins. And on the pool table in the room, everybody had put photographs of their families. And as I walked around that pool table looking at the photographs, I saw my nose and my eyes and my ears and my chin and my face. I saw people staring back at me that looked like me. And it was so powerful because I didn't know any members of that family except for my maternal grandmother for my whole life until that point. You know, apart from my siblings and my cousins, the 2 cousins, I knew no one else. So to suddenly walk into that room and feel that sense of belonging, I was able to celebrate all the people I'd never met that I was related to because I carried part of them within me. So that in itself is hugely empowering. You know, when you can explore that and really celebrate those pieces of you that make you who you are. And people forget that when someone dies. People think they're gone, they're in a hole in the ground, they're in a pot of dust, you know, you've thrown them in a garden somewhere with a lovely rose or a tree growing on top of them, or, you know, for some, it's a sea burial. My father was adamant he was going into the Thames because he was born by the Thames, and that's where he went because that's what he wanted. So if ever I want to go and visit, I have to go up to London, you know, take a stroll on the Thames. And but I carry parts of him within me, you know, and that's hugely powerful when you're healing from that loss of someone through death. And, you know, the other thing is when we're speaking to each other, when we're talking about death, not to be afraid of the word death. We didn't lose that person down the back of a sofa or, you know, they didn't drop out of our pocket walking down the street. They've died. They've left us in that physical form. So when we're expressing our condolences to someone else, rather than saying, I'm sorry for your loss, I can't begin to imagine how that feels for you. The death of, because it's making it about the person who's experienced the death, who's experienced the disconnection from that physical person that was so important to them, rather than making it more about us. And that's a really powerful about change in our language. So when we can express that it's about the person rather than involving ourselves, you know, very much in the world of alienation and estrangement, there's a big language about, I know how you feel. But nobody knows how you feel when you've experienced a death, because that relationship between you and the person who's died is one single relationship. Even with twins will feel that relationship death very differently. And this is what people forget. We are all unique human beings. And that uniqueness means that what we're experiencing is completely unique to us. So we can't know what someone else is feeling like because we're not inside their brain and their body. And it is about acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Wow. Melody hit it on the nose when she said that you help people find their voice. And I wanted to add to that you You help people find their voice while strengthening your own.
I grow every time I coach someone, every time I take someone through training, because I learn from every person. And it's extraordinary how many times you've done layers and layers of healing, but somebody will come to you with something that you haven't found for yourself yet. And out it will pop from them, and you'll sit there and your little pencil, and I do mean little, your little pencil and your notepad go together. Oh, I have big ones as well. Look, they get worn down. They're well used. And I make a little note, and then I will find the time to work on that little thing, because it goes back to those seeds. Something will just sprout and pop up and go, hello, you haven't seen me before. It's time to deal with me. Because we are a work in motion.
Wow.
It's so amazing what you've just said, and it's very enlightening to see this. If I may speak for the three of us, you've left us with our thoughts very open. You've left us with our eyes in a different view. How do you feel when you hear people say, I love you to each other, whether it be friends, family, to their children?
That's so, again, it's so powerful. Love is an underexpressed thing, but love isn't about the physical. Love is about the compassion. It's about how we make time for each other. And actually, since I've done the grief training, and I think all of my friends will attest to this, I tell them all I love them constantly. And even people that do wonderful things for me, the chaps at the garage, which isn't very far away, when they do my tyres for me, because I find it tricky to get down and do the tyres. So they get down and they do the air and things for me. I always say, thanks, I love you so much for doing that for me. And they always walk around with a very stupid grin on their faces. But you know what? It's about how they've been made to feel. And if I can share that energy with others all day long, then I will do exactly that.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's definitely something that people are not used to, and it makes them very uncomfortable.
Yes.
To use those words. And when I started my healing journey, it just became normal, because I started to learn to love myself first. And I was able to just, I love you. Like, I do love you. And people used to be like, okay, very weirded by it, until it was like a conversation I had with my husband and some friends. And we were like, we're normalizing to tell you guys we love you. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's very uncomfortable for those who don't have those sort of emotions or express those emotions to start expressing it. But I find that once they start doing it, it's so beautiful. Like my girlfriends and I, there's a few of my girlfriends when we talk, it's like, hey, love you. Okay, talk to you later. Bye, love you. It's always just, it's a beautiful feeling. It's a beautiful emotion.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's something, and you're so right, normalize, something we need to normalize. If we can normalize that kind of language around the children, it will help them to struggle less and integrate more. It will help them to have more powerful lives going forward and more powerful connections with other people. Yeah. Because it's about it's not just the learning to love ourselves, it's the learning to value ourselves and value our self-worth and have faith and trust in ourselves. We don't have to go to a church to have faith and trust. We are spiritual beings. We carry a very vibrant spirit. And when we love it, it gives us back.
Yeah, very
Bacon.
true.
Bacon. I love you.
Yeah, you beat me to it. You beat me to it.
I knew one of you two were working it. I don't know who was going to say it first, but I felt it coming. I knew one of them was going to say it.
Oh, man.
I knew it.
I'm in the room right now. Yep. Yep. Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's this has been a really eye opening type of episode because I personally been inspired and touched by your words and what we've discussed today, and I feel like I still have to this moment some healing of my own that I try to think that I'm over, but I'm not, and always try to find different avenues of expressing that and deal with it is something that I plan to do going forward. And one of my resolutions I had this year, I was talking with Mendez about this, is I'm trying to empower myself, and I feel that I do empower myself in a lot of ways, but I never really do it for myself. We're putting
So
myself.
can I ask you something then?
Sure.
Stop using the word try, because try sets you up for failure. Leave the word try and just say, I am. I am doing. I am being. No try.
Thank you, Debbie. I really appreciate that. Remember what I said to you the day you signed on to be part of the team? Here, nobody needs to try because everything that happens is a do. We do things, we grow, we make it because at the end of the day, we're not just here to try. People that try forget to love themselves.
Yes.
People that try forget to respect themselves. And you, like I keep on telling you, and I will continue to preach it onto you till you get it through your big head. You are one unique being. And I say it to everybody, I love you, I see you, and I know how amazing you are. So I agree with Debbie. Forget that 3-letter word is banned from my house, and you know that because you've heard me telling my kids. Stop trying, do it, because you're so beautiful and you have so much to give, my brother.
Appreciate you, my guy.
So, do you guys have any other questions? Because we are coming to the end of the show, and I don't want to take too much of Debbie's time because she is about 5 or 7 hours ahead of us, and she needs to get her sleep because even though she doesn't need the beauty sleep, she does need her sleep. We want to make sure that we can bring her back on, guys.
Absolutely. I'd love to. That would be a pleasure to have you back. It's not much of a question. It's again just a thank you. And I just wanted to just in everything you have shared with us, again, it's a reassurance of where I have been, where I am going. I feel wonderful that you are here with us today. I feel refreshed, I'll be honest. And I just want to say, I am a firm believer that when we decide to take on a journey of growth and self development, I'm a firm believer that we reverse our age. And you look
Oh, yeah.
absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I got to admit it. When you
You
said you're
do.
60, I was like, there's no way.
You look absolutely stunning. So, whatever it is you're doing to help others, thank you. Because, as you've said, in filling others' cups, you are filling your own cup. And I know the feeling of that. It's a beautiful thing. So, I mean, the only thing I can ask is for our viewers, once again, I mean, let us know how we can or how they can reach out to you, connect with you, because I'm sure there's going to be a
So,
lot of people.
absolutely. So, very easy to find me on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm always happy for people to follow. If there's space to connect, then to connect. I tend to have a lot of people that I'm connected to. I seem to be a person collector. So, Facebook only lets you have so many people, but I'm always available for a conversation, and I'm very happy for people to private message me and just say, I'd really like to have a conversation with you. How can we go about that? I have one client in Canada at the moment, so I'm getting used to working my times and things around so that I can work with people, in Canada more frequently, because of course you've got several different time zones, whereas here in the UK, we have one. Yeah. And where are we? It's 5 to 5 in the afternoon for me. So yes, I do a free consultation. I have an intake form because I like to learn a little bit about you before you get to me so that I can give you my best in that short half an hour journey.
Beautiful.
And it's important to me, that people talk on my posts. I share and express parts of my experience. I share all different types of things. I ask all different kinds of questions. And I like people to jump onto my posts and have conversations on Instagram as well as on Facebook, because it's a place to have a conversation. It's not a place to hide, and we all do it. We're all guilty of hiding and sort of just watching and listening. But when we start to speak, and we find our courage. And so I'm more than happy to help people explore their courage.
So traditionally here when we end the show, everybody says something, some words of encouragement, something that we've taken from the show, something that we've been able to gain or we would like to share with everybody. So we'll let Debbie kick it off this week and we will go from there. After we're done, Debbie, if you don't mind sticking around with us, please. Do not log off yet. And we'll go from there. So we'll give the floor to Debbie.
Thank you. So I think the first thing that is so important is learning to look in the mirror. Look at yourself squarely in the face, right in the eyes. And don't be afraid of looking at yourself. The eyes are the mirror of the soul. So what you see coming back at you is what needs to be loved and healed. And if you can just take that a step at a time instead of going, oh my gosh, that's too much. Just take it a day at a time. And if you can tell yourself you love yourself every single day, there may be emotion, there may be tears, there may be faltering in being able to get those words out. But eventually your mind will catch up with the words and everything will start to change, and it will be easier to tell yourself you love yourself. How's that?
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. No, there you go. I can't hear you. I see your lips moving, but I don't hear you.
My beautiful people, I just want to remind you that loving yourself is most important. I want to remind you that it is okay not to be okay at times. Anything you face is just for that moment. Everything will pass with time. Give yourself some credit for what you're doing. And don't forget to love yourself a little more today than you did yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen, the viewers who are listening today and watching today, I really hope you took something from this, because every time we do an episode of Abiertos here, we take something of it. We learn, we laugh, we love and respect those who come onto our show and give a piece of themselves for the hour to let us learn more about them. I'm usually a man with a lot of words, but I must say, waking up this morning, I wasn't expecting to feel the way how I feel right now, and I feel more empowered right now than I ever did before. So what I'll say is this. Just what Debbie mentioned, look yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the eyes, and say to yourself, I'm worth it. I love myself. I can do whatever my mind that I have towards I can do. And even if I fail, the attempt was made, and be proud of that. Because a lot of people in this life go on every day, wake up and feel that they can't do better for themselves. So when you look at yourself in that mirror and you say, you can, that's something your mind and your heart will follow. MC Bacon, salute. You already know what it is, man.
So Debbie touched on something that on my household, since my children were born, I prohibited and I continue to prohibit. Don't use negative words towards yourself. Doesn't matter how wrong life is going. Doesn't matter what is going on in your life. Don't try. Forget about trying. The world is full of people that try. Be the person that's going to do for you. Be the person that's going to love you. Be the person that's going to be the change that you desire from so many, but haven't realized that you can do for yourself without even having to think about it. At the end of the day, like I say all the time, when that final nail hits, when that door finally closes, when you're not able to open up your eyes anymore, know that you've loved yourself and given yourself the opportunity to be true, to be you, and that even though you faced obstacles, all it was just a challenge that gave you a new opportunity for you to grow, be bolder, and be who you're meant to be. Mi gente, abiertos. We'll see you guys next week. Much love to Debbie. We'll have her links on the subscription description. And sabes que, Debbie, you're coming back.